Sure.
Let me make a couple points here, because what we're talking about in this conversation, it's like we're reaching to reclaim how things were in the past. We're talking about this concept of courtship, right? Courtship is a process that historically has been used to bring a man and a woman together under the guidance of the woman's father in order to preserve her chastity so that the two of them can get married, right? This is a process that's reserved for traditional women, done by traditional men.
Nick, can you close the doors?
It's funny because, like, as I'm sitting here at this table, it's evident to me, like, this is, you guys want this traditional treatment. Like, I think every woman dreams of it. You know, you hear the story about the guy who built the woman the house in The Notebook. It's like, wow, that's so romantic. That's so sweet, right? Like, that's like a traditional thing. And I think all women in their hearts of hearts, like, they want a guy who's traditional like that, who wants to pursue them and wants to love them. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
Yes, that behavior, like, historically, yeah, the agreement was a guy would pursue a woman like that in a courtship. Only those two people would be talking. So if I was courting you, for example, the agreement would be you would not be talking to anybody else. I would not be talking to anybody else. Courtship was also something that was reserved typically for virgins, right? Women were virgins throughout history. We can rail about the patriarchy all we want, but part of a father's job was to protect his daughter's chastity, because there's a lot of bad men out there, right? Like, we're dreaming of, like, reclaiming this thing from the past, but it requires both men and women to actually do each of their roles, which is to Brian's point. Like, it's traditionally speaking a woman's job to preserve her chastity. And a woman who preserves her chastity is going to warrant that kind of traditional treatment from a man, compared to, you know, if a woman's sleeping around with a bunch of different guys and then she's like, no, I want you to treat me traditionally, he's going to look at her and be like, well, you weren't traditional up until now. Like, why should I roll out the red carpet when you just gave yourself so easily to all these other guys, right? That's the mental conundrum that guys have. It makes it challenging for them. The ideal, I think, is for both sexes to return to this tradition, but it requires both men and women to fix their behavior. And I think that starts with every single one of us.
Yeah, and to add to just the body count thing, so in the same way that a lot of the women here wish for that return to tradition, traditional courtship, men paying for first dates, men providing, men being protectors, men opening the door for you, et cetera, and most people wouldn't have any issue with you saying that if I, as a guy, say, I wish women were still virgins, or heck, even had a sub-5 body count, who are modest, both in behavior and appearance, not blasted in plastic surgery, wanted to be submissive, followed my lead, were not quarrelsome, who knew how to take care of the internal affairs of the household. I would get looked at as, whoa, misogynist.
How dare you?
But that's the opposite side of the coin of the traditional demands that you want from men.
Yep.
You're equating that to opening a car door, flowers, car door, like paying for a $10 date. Like, those are such, like, tiny, simple
They're just, like,
things.
Versus, like, what you're asking about a woman is, like, what's already been of her past. So in your case,
past matters, though.
Matters. No, I'm not saying that, but I'm asking, like, so in order to go on a date for you personally with a woman, do you talk to her for a while and ask her about her body count before the date happens, just so you make sure that you pay for someone who has only had less than 5? Because she also can lie, and you'll never know.
She could lie. I hope she wouldn't, though.
No, yeah.
I hope she wouldn't lie, because I think honesty is very important.
Because you're basing your actions on the first date based off of who she is or what she's already done. So it's, like, not a physical or, like, even a behavioral thing, really. It's like, she can put a turtleneck on.
Body count's pretty behavioral.
But I'm saying, like, in that first date, that's stuff that she already had done, regardless of that. You know what I mean? So it's like, she can put a turtleneck on and say she's never been with anybody, but it's like...
Well, I certainly hope that our first interaction is not predicated on deception and a lie.
But I'm just curious for you, is that, like, your norm of, like, you usually like to talk to a woman and ask her those certain kinds of questions?
I typically would. I'll have a conversation with a woman beforehand. I might not just outright be like, how many dudes have you fucked? But I might try to ask some questions. What's your relationship history? That can sort of give me an inkling. Okay, she's dated maybe this many guys. That could be a slight indicator. Does she drink? Does she party? Does she go to bars, nightclubs, etc.? Let me look at her Instagram. That could potentially be an indicator. Granted, there's a lot of women who are very unassuming. They might be a bit shy. They might actually present modestly, but secretly they have quite a past.
Yeah.
So it's not always a perfect indicator, but we as men, we will try to suss out these things through alternative means. But I'm also okay just outright asking, so, okay, what's your body count? I'll ask.
That's crazy that you put so much importance on body count. Like, that's just so crazy to me.
Why is it crazy?
Because I just don't see why it matters. Like, why does it matter what... I mean, like, I can understand, like, if she cheated. Okay, she cheated. Okay, I get that.
Sure.
But how many people she chose to sleep with, I don't understand how that is, like, relevant at all.
So for I'll answer that. And there's a ton of reasons why. I think probably one of the most important reasons, at least for me, is that when I'm dating a girl, I want her, even on the first date, I want her undivided sexual and romantic attention. If she's going out and dating other men, sleeping with other men, first off, that's not a woman that I even want to pursue. I want a woman to be properly single when I'm even first meeting her. And I think a lot of people don't move that way. So body count, your past, is proxy for promiscuity. Promiscuity is proxy for, there's a good chance that when I'm talking to her, when I meet her, she's got another guy in the picture. There's another guy that she's sleeping with. To me, that's gross. I don't want to date you. I don't want to kiss you. I don't want to have I certainly don't want to have sex with a woman who's having sex with another man. So is that complicated for you to understand, or does that kind of make a bit more sense?
No, I totally understand
but
that.
So somebody who has a high body count, that can be a proxy for current promiscuity. So if you have a high body count, you could be sleeping. Yeah. There's a greater likelihood that you're sleeping with another guy while I'm talking to you. I certainly don't want that. Also, if you have a high body count, greater likelihood of STD. And also you've started to, the more sexual partners you have, the greater difficulty when it comes to pair bonding with somebody. If you've had 50 previous sexual partners and I'm number 51, you're not going to view me in a particularly special way. At least that's my view. And I think we all, both men and women, want to be viewed as special to our potential romantic partners, to our potential future husbands and wives. If I'm number 51, I'm number 101. That's and the big thing also, this is a differential between men and women. So I could list a bunch of examples that I think apply to both men and women. STDs, I think it's the case for both men and women. You could certainly make arguments that that the actual act of sexual intercourse, the transmission rate might be there might be a differential there. Perhaps women are more susceptible to getting an STD than the reverse for various reasons due to anatomy, but we don't need to get into that. The big difference, though, that does not exist in women, that does exist in men, and I would argue this is a evolutionary psychology basis, biological basis, is paternity uncertainty. So men, it's not even necessarily an intellectual thing. A woman who's promiscuous, you cannot guarantee the paternity of your child if she's promiscuous.
How? You get a DNA test.
But that doesn't undo hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. No. So, for example, a woman who has 10 husbands, right? If she sleeps with all of them, who's the fucking father? Whereas a man who has 10 wives, you know who the father is in each of those instances. So women can, if you have a child, you know with certainty that the child is yours, obviously because of just the anatomical and biological reality that women are the ones who give birth. But women, since we don't give birth, we cannot with certainty know if the child is ours. So one of the best ways to be certain of that is, one, if she's a virgin, or two, we know that she's not promiscuous and has a low body count.
I have a question.
Sure. Do you want to respond to that, or maybe you respond and then?
I don't know. I guess I somewhat understand like what you're saying.
Why are women attracted to tall men? Tall men. Why are women attracted to muscular men?
Because they can protect them. Maybe this, I don't know.
Okay.
Like giving.
But is it, okay, sure, right? So in that same way, men are attracted to women who are not promiscuous. It's like, it's ingrained in us.
It's whoever's going to further your bloodline, really.
Yeah. Well, because you mentioned, we have DNA tests now, but just because we have this invention of human brilliance doesn't undo, again, the fact that there's been hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. It's ingrained in us as men. And again, this thing does not exist in women. Paternity, when it comes to the maternity, I guess, or whatever, it's impossible to exist in women. Because when you have a child, you know with certainty that's your child. Mm-hmm. But you could be hooking up with another dude. We don't know. That kid might not be ours. So men have a more natural revulsion to female promiscuity than the reverse. Not to say that I think women are totally justified in taking issue and quarrel with male promiscuity. However, there's not that ingrained biological and evolutionary basis that exists in men.
It's this simple. Let's say I'm talking to two women. One of them has a 0 body count. The other has a body count of 50. Which one of them do you think I'm going to feel more confident in her being, like, which one do you think will inspire more confidence in her fidelity long term?
50. I'm just kidding. The virgin.
Right, exactly. And it's a natural, immediate instinct, right? And it's really that simple. It's like our biology, our DNA, like it hunts for that like purity. And there is like a revulsion towards that promiscuity, because it is biologically very dangerous for a man to commit to a woman who might sleep with another man who he might end up raising the child of.
But
like it's thousands of years of like programming.
Don't you think there's purity in a girl that is loyal to you regardless of body count? Like she's loyal to you.
We're talking about like sexual purity.
Yeah, but I just mean like taking away body count. Let's say she has a lot of body count, but she's loyal to you. She's never slept with anyone but you since being with you. Isn't there purity in that too? Like, why is it just like...
I wouldn't call that like purity. I would call it loyalty. But the question of why it matters is like, for example, okay, so you could have a woman who has a 50 body count and she could be the most loyal woman in the world, but a man is still going to want to know, hey, how did that happen? Like what like if a guy cares about body count, he's going to want to know, how did that happen? What happened there? What compelled you to sleep with all of these men? Like, what was the pattern that unfolded? What was it in your psychology? Like, he's probably going to want to understand that if it's something that he cares about, because ultimately at the end of the day, it's like, is this woman going to be loyal to me in the future? Like, loyalty is extremely, extremely important, obviously, to both sexes. You know, that's one aspect of it. Another aspect of it too is like Brian was talking about before, us men are extremely territorial when it comes to women that we're really into. Like, if a guy doesn't really care about a woman that much, like, he might not care if she's seeing other guys, but if a guy really likes a woman and he really loves her, he's not going to want to share her with other men in the present or in the past. You know, it's like, sex is a very sacred thing, you know, especially from a man towards a woman. And obviously no woman wants a guy who's going to cheat on her, but it's different. Like, for us men, it's a very territorial thing. Like, that's your woman. Like, you don't want another man touching her, and you know, her past can affect that.
Who do you think cheats more, men or women?
I think on average it's men.
Why do you think that is?
I saw a stat the other day. I think it was like divorce statistics and how many of those divorces are filed because of adultery. And I think the statistic was like 34%. It was the woman cheating, and 38% was the man cheating. I think it was slightly higher for men.
Not too much of a difference.
What was your question though? You asked, why do you think that is?
Yeah.
Well, I think, you know, it's biologically speaking, men, like, we have a biological drive to spread our seed as far as possible. It's just part of our nature. That doesn't mean it has to dominate us, but like, it's just part of our nature. You know, a lot of guys, like, you know, I know guys who have cheated on their girlfriends, and they typically just cheat because they feel an impulsive physical desire. And that's real. Like, it's hard to describe what it's like being a guy, but like, you know, when you've got testicles, like, your body's like, yo, we've got loads we got to deliver, like, get them out, you know?
Yeah.
It's different. Like, women are kind of wired more emotionally towards sex, whereas guys are much more like physical, like, I need to get this out of my system. And I think that's why guys more often cheat. Like, cheating for women is like, it's sex in general for women is typically a very emotional process. Like, if you, I imagine you guys would agree, like, if you don't feel an emotional connection with a guy, you're probably not going to want to sleep with him. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the same for men oftentimes. You know, guys will just have sex with a woman